I don't think it ever started.
Right.
I
It
don't
never
think
started.
They ever started.
Emerald Robinson was, bringing us up to date on that, and we expect to have her back to do another report on this latest information. But it takes effect at 5 p.m. And Bob, what we were trying to figure out is that Arizona Democrats will have to post this bond of $1 million to take effect. So I'm certainly interested in asking her about that. Some of the issues apparently included blue markers being used instead of red markers, and they just want to make sure everything's done correctly.
Yeah. Let's talk with our panel. You know, we throw you curveballs now and then. If you've been on our panel, you know that. So, and Judd's back. John, as you look at this, what you're reading as far as what's going on here, if anything, any reading on it?
Well, we know that Maricopa County heavily is weighted on Republican voters, right? So, and there was a delay. There was a lot of discrepancy shortly after the election in terms of the vote count, especially when it came down to mail-in ballots. So I think, people from both sides, but particularly Republicans, want to make sure that we have an audit, the numbers are accurate, do a lessons learned, so that way they will never be in that situation again going forward with or without mail-in ballots. And let's be honest here, unless questions are answered with regard to an audit, there will be conspiracy theories and everything else that'll bubble up during every election. So this is needed for our process and for the integrity.
Now, Amy, the argument against going this route is that it's been certified by the state. They had some recounts so there's a side that says this is completely unnecessary and it's politically motivated.
Sure. Well, historically, when you have a recount, we know, number one, it's very expensive and it is timely. On top of that, most of the recounts, if you go back and see the ones that were performed on the federal level, they did not have enough changes to actually make a big difference in the outcome. So I don't have high hopes that there will be anything big enough found to make a difference. But I do find it interesting that the Democrats just wouldn't allow this to go forward, because if there is nothing found, then they can go ahead and, pound their chests and put their fists in the air and say, hey, mud's back on your face, GOP, let's move on. But if something is found and that's what they're fearful of, that's going to be a whole nother story.
But then, Heather, the argument against that is that if the Democrats aren't involved in the recount themselves, and it's a politically motivated recount, that's the argument against it, then how do you rely on that count being correct? Right. And we're back where we started.
Right. And because of all these questions, the reason that the pause is held up until 5 p.m. is to allow for an appeal on that decision. So perhaps it could, at this point, still go on as planned. And then also, I found this in regards to that $1 million bond that we were asking about, wondering what that's about. This would be a pause from 5 p.m. today to allow for appeal until 12 noon on Monday if the plaintiffs provide $1 million bond for damages. And then the judge went on to say, and this is a quote, the audit will proceed, but he wants to review policies and procedures in place. So it is going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
It's all policies, procedures now, right? And then I'm assuming the Democrats would have to agree with the policy and procedures, or they would argue that. And we know they're going to argue that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Judd, your thoughts here, sir.
The soul of our country relates to how the due process is in these state elections. I mean, in these state reviews of the election process, it's the state legislations that Republicans still have the dominant force across the nation. The more that we continue to audit, the more we build confidence in America. A lot of people, over 50% of people, lost confidence in the process. So I'm all for it. I think they should continue vigilantly through the process, regardless of how people want it to end. And by the way, this is a great counterbalance to H.R. 1. While we're seeing H.R. 1 push through, we want to continue to do the audit process. So any attention we can put on the states for as long as we can until the midterms, I think is great.
Okay, so that's all we know about this right now. We wanted to get your read on it, and we're going to take a break here with our panel. And coming up, where in the world is President Biden's border czar? That's next on American Agenda.
One of us knows that young children are not affected by this virus. They're not. And that's a blessing. But as the adults, what have we done with that blessing? We've shoved it to the side and we've said, we don't care. You're still going to wear a mask on your face every day, 5 and 6-year-olds. You still can't play together on the playground like normal children, 7 and 8-year-olds. It's April 15th, 2021, and it's time. Take these masks off of my child.
Man, she was awesome. I could listen to the entire thing she had to say over and over and over.
Yeah. It's like that guy that was in Loudoun County, Virginia, who said, figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this coming as more vaccines also are more accessible, yet people and children still being required to wear these masks. You know, Amy, what did you think about that mom and everything that she had to say? She would like bring herself to tears, but then she'd snap out of it. You could tell she is angry. That's what she is.
It was very powerful, and it's basically what every one of us has been thinking, right? I mean, I have an elementary school student that was in cross country yesterday up in South Lake Tahoe. He had to wear a mask while they were outside playing in between races. And when I picked him up, he took the mask off and it was filled with dirt. So I don't see how that's sanitary or healthy at all. And the fact that we have here in the state of Nevada, we're considering now opening up UFC fights to seat anywhere from 10 to 15,000 people. We now have strip clubs that are going to be opening to full capacity May 1st. I think we need to prioritize our children, and that's exactly what this woman is conveying, and I agree with her 100%.
Yeah, to say the least. And John, it was March 2020 that the CDC made this recommendation, and as the mom pointed out, we are now April 2021, and we're still forcing children 2 years old and older to wear masks.
Yeah, another thing that the Democrats have been saying for over a year now is trust the science. Well, science actually covers a lot of different areas and categories, one of which is child development. And we already know years 0 through 5, possibly 6, are the most formative years that goes into molding a child's personality, their learning skills. Let's not forget, they're learning how to socialize. They're learning how to talk. They're learning how to think. So masks limit the interaction, not just with teachers, but also with their fellow classmates in terms of learning as well as playtime. So this is actually hampering and jeopardizing the future generation, right? 20, 30, 40 years from now. So we should believe all science and actually try to balance things where people can get back to normal, including our children.
Yeah, and when you're talking about, Bob, children of that age, 2 years old, it's actually even less sanitary for them to wear a mask because not only they're wearing it, they're taking it on and off, they're messing with it all day long, and it's just ends up being more detrimental, according to the science, by the way.
Yeah. My girls play volleyball. They have to wear masks during the game.
Yeah.
And one of the members of the team got COVID. She didn't get it from the games. Okay, she didn't get there. And what bugs me, Judd, is that the schools, I don't hear a whole lot of meetings going on about, okay, this is working in Illinois, or this is working in Texas, or this is working in Georgia. We got to try this. All I hear them saying is, well, the CDC says there's a slight bit of risk.
Yeah, this whole mask controversy could have been avoided if the school board would have just allowed Biden to cut a hole in the kids' masks so they could sniff each other's hair. I mean, there's no logic to this whatsoever. I'm all for masking kids as long as they grow up to vote Republican and hate the government. I mean, that's what they're going to do. And this woman, she's a hero. Hell hath no fury like a woman whose kids are illegitimately masked. She is the voice of all this about the rationality of the kids. And the other thing too is we used to call the people at Vaughn's and our nurses heroes. We needed more hero teachers to get our kids through this and fight for them and fight for their education. I think kids have really been abandoned here. We need to get these masks off these kids, leave our kids out of this one.
Yeah. Amy.
Yes, no, I agree. We have had 0 positive COVID students at the elementary school level. So I agree with with everyone, we need to get back to prioritizing our children, their education, their mental health, and we need to move forward.
Yeah. I was trying to look this up, John, because you brought it up in reference to, the different studies and what science do you believe? Because the World Health Organization, they all along recommended children 5 and older anyway. And so then you have the CDC saying 2 and older, and then you have the President of the United States using that, as we were talking about in a segment earlier today, using that to say everyone on transportation, all forms of transportation, have to wear these masks. So that's been in place since January 2021.
Yeah, I thought this was America, right? Where not only politics is local, right, but also the decisions regarding school board, right? It should be local. It should not be in Atlanta where the CDC is. It should definitely not be in Washington with Dr. Fauci, because he's been wishy-washy for the last 365 days, right? So to her frustration, she's absolutely right. She's not alone. Parents across America are saying, look, we need our kids back in school. And now we're at the point where, you know what? We need them to take the mask off and get back to normal, right? So that way they can be socialized and learn just like we did when we went to school.
Yeah. Well, Congressman Jason Smith was with us earlier. He, along with Senator Mike Lee, are now trying to, pressure, let's say, the CDC to kind of reverse some of their mask mandates. We'll see if that happens. We're going to talk about more coming up, so everybody don't go far. What about this? Caitlyn Jenner for California governor, the former Olympian and reality TV star, making it official, her official announcement to run to lead the Golden State. What are her chances? We'll talk about that and more up next.
Caitlyn Jenner might actually run for governor, and we know that this comes because of the recall efforts on Gavin Newsom. Now, if Gavin Newsom is left in office, it'll be irrelevant. But if they say in the election coming up, the recall election, yes, you want him taken out, then there are going to be probably hundreds, at least dozens of people running. And among them is going to be Caitlyn Jenner. So you live right next to California, Amy. You know what a kind of an interesting state this is. Do you think that Caitlyn Jenner could actually win?
Never say never. People thought that about Donald Trump, right? And also Ronald Reagan. And then, of course, you've got other names floating out there like Dwayne Johnson, who's known as The Rock. So this is going to be quite interesting next election. Caitlyn Jenner, it's actually been out that she has tapped Carolyn Wren, who is a big GOP fundraiser out in this area, who also fundraised and worked for Trump victory. So it will be very interesting to see who actually ends up backing her in this endeavor, because as you mentioned, many Californians are extremely upset with Governor Gavin Newsom, primarily because of his immigration policies and the way he's mishandled COVID.
Yeah, Judd, what's your take on what's going on here?
Well, I live in the People's Republic of California, so I'm in. I love it. I mean, look, Bruce in the past crushed the Russians, and Caitlyn's been a really successful millionaire and an interesting, dynamic person. That's the kind of issue. That's the kind of the situation we need to actually flip power. You know, California used to be a Republican state. Texas used to be a Democrat state, right? America is moving. We voted for Trump because he was deconstructionist and anti-institutionalist. I love this. I'm in. It would take this kind of power. You know, I actually might even stay here and vote next time.
Okay. John, give me your insight on this. I know California, it has, the urban centers tend to be very liberal, but then you have rural California, which has been very conservative. That's one of the reasons in the past you had people like Ronald Reagan as governor.
Yeah. Well, we know that Jenner has the stamina to run. I couldn't help it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? I think she should run, and I'm glad she got in the race. This will actually put a lot of pressure on Democrats. Why? Because now if you don't vote for her, then it could be said that, you know what, you're actually transphobic, right? That's what they would do to us, right? So we need to actually push the envelope on Democrats, vote on the merits, vote on policy, vote on issues, right? And let's start the hashtagging. I'm with her. Go Jenner, right? All these different things to put more pressure on Democrats, rally the base, and don't be surprised if Jenner actually helps to grow the Republican Party in California.
Yeah, what do you think, Heather?
I think that's actually what I was just thinking that John was talking about. How would the Democrats run against Caitlyn Jenner? Because that would have to come into play here, right? If there ended up being an election and she was in on it.
Right.
But then the other concern is, how will she impact the number of Republicans that you and I have already talked about, Bob, that are talking about, possibly throwing their hat into the ring as well? And is she just, name recognition only because she's a celebrity?
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I have a feeling we're going to hear a lot more about this. Is she serious?
Right.
She's hiring people, it looks like former Trump people, to help her run. So this might be the real deal. We'll find out. Standby panel.
I'd just like to throw in real quickly, Bob, I'm originally from the Central Valley, and that's pretty much that area and maybe a pocket of Orange County are the only red counties left in California. But I think this is different because of this recall that's been going on. It's been bipartisan. So there's going to be a lot of anger and frustration aimed at the Democrat Party this go around.
Amy, just to ask you, did you hear Brad Parscale was helping out as well?
I have not.
Okay. We had a report earlier that possibly he was, from the Trump campaign helping out as well. So.
And since there's not a primary,
if I hear that, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a primary. So if you're on the ballot, and there could be hundreds, there were last time when Gray Davis was up and Arnold Schwarzenegger came by. I think he got in the high 40s, but you don't even have to get 50%.
Hey,
could be hundreds.
A celebrity won in 2016, right?
Yeah.
I read that somewhere. I have to look it up. I can't remember his name, but yeah, that's what happened. We're going to take a break and ask the question: is teaching advanced math, racist? How in Virginia they're
the 11th grade, effectively keeping smarter students from advancing as they usually would in that school system. In other words, arguing that math is racist and eliminating all advanced math will be more inclusive of all students. But some parents say that plan will subtract from their children's ability to get into a good college. Let's bring back in our panel with this. Judd, I will start with you. Not only that, it would keep students from getting into a good college. It seems a little bit racist on itself to say that some students just can't handle advanced math.
Yeah, obviously I'm not racist because I'm horrible at math, but I'm successful anyway. Listen, the fact that math could be racist is ridiculous, with the exception being, of course, this. If it's a narrative math logic question such as 5 BLM radicals and 3 white supremacists are in a room and one of them walks out, how many Democrats remain in the room? 7. So I wrote that for this piece because here's the thing. Democrats hate logic, right? And of course you want to deconstruct logic. You want to dumb down America. No safety net, no ceiling. Free market capitalism rocks. We cannot de-risk America and we cannot dumb it down.
John, what do you think about that? Should equity require getting rid of advanced math?
You know how I would teach equity?
Yeah.
Broke times broke is broke squared. Right? The thing is that, you know why people actually go through grade school and then college and not even know how to actually invest, how to open a business, and how to actually assess markets and economics, right? So math actually is sorely needed in our education system, and we don't need to tinker with it. We just need to teach it and tell students how it's applied. When I went through school, right, I was bored. Why was I bored with a lot of the advanced math? Because no one told me that in order to read economic charts and slopes and different things of that nature, this is where math is also applied. So we need to actually relate it to different students in a myriad of different ways to show them career paths. And let's not forget big tech. Big tech imports talent from all over the world, Why? Because we have math skills deficiencies in America. We wouldn't need to import talent to fill jobs. We could actually teach people from K through 12 and beyond what math is and how it's applied, so that way we can actually put people to work right here in America.
Yeah, this does seem, Bob, like instead of fixing the problem, which is better education, you're kind of just saying, oh, well, we'll just do away with it altogether.
Plus, why can't you offer it? You don't have to take it, and nobody's making a judgment about that. Just if you don't want to take it, don't take it. If you do, because you think it's worthwhile, and you want to have an extra boost to get you into a good college, it should absolutely be available. I have kids in the system. I want them to take that advanced math if they can do well. So far, they are. To have that taken away puts them behind others.
Yeah.
You are taking away their opportunity. By the way, they did a questionnaire in the high school where they go. Among the questions is, do you think somebody who's Asian is good at math? Well, that's a no-win answer right there, right? If you say yes, you're racist. Even if you say the people you know who happen to be Asian are good, no, that makes you racist. Well, this is almost suggesting the opposite,
right.
That someone of color, black and Hispanic, are going to be bad at math. Well, I don't assume that either. So why can't we just say, here's the class. If you want to take it, here it is.
Yeah. Amy, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you can actually flip it. I had two of my daughters in public school for a very short time, for second and third grade, and we had a problem with English in the class. So if your student only spoke English and the other student only spoke Spanish, guess what? Most likely your teacher wasn't bilingual. So that teacher had to then translate through another bilingual student in hopes that everything was being translated correctly as everyone's twiddling their thumbs watching this interaction go down before them. So we can call anything and everything racist at this point. Democrats, that's what they do best. I hate math, so I'll go ahead and I'll side with them on this one.
Yeah. Well,
if I can actually add this point, part of that research study also says that we place too much focus on the right answer. What do you mean?
What?
My wrong answer?
Well, you know,
it's your opinion. Your opinion.
That's funny, John, because with my girls, when they say, oh, I almost got that answer right, except it was supposed to have a negative in front of it, I tell them, oh, great. Instead of sending the rocket to the moon, it was going to the center of the earth.
Right.
It matters. There's a right answer.
Yeah. It's taking that whole concept a step further that we began talking about several years ago, where you're not handing out trophies anymore. You don't want a first place or a second place. Now it's moving it into, other areas, and it's just gotten absolutely ridiculous.
We will all suffer with this kind of mentality.
Right. There's a right answer and a wrong answer sometimes.
A meritocracy is okay.
Yeah.
You're allowed to succeed. You're allowed to do better than others. Maybe if you work hard, you will. And if you don't, keep working hard.
Yeah, and if people think that we're exaggerating, we are not, because they are talking about Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, all right, for grades 8 through 10, and replacing them with what they're calling essential concepts for grade 8, 9, and 10. So it really is not an exaggeration to say that they are perhaps dumbing down the school system.
Let me know how that does with college.
I was just going to say that, Heather. Yeah. I agree with you. They're dumbing everyone down. They're pigeonholing everyone into the same corner. I have 3 that are in high school right now, and they all have different goals that they want to achieve.
Yep.
I have 1 that's in regular math and 2 that are in advanced math. By no means would the one who's not in advanced math be any less of a person. She just has different goals.
Right.
Absolutely. 100%.
Different skills, different abilities, different interests.
Right.
That's life.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. But stick around, because coming up, be sure to check out Judd Dunning's book, by the way. His latest book is 13 and a Half Reasons Why Not to Be a Liberal. It's available everywhere that books are sold. Or you can save some time and go to the link on the screen right now to order it on Amazon today. It will take you directly to Amazon's page to order the book. Coming up, a juror in the Derek Chauvin trial admits that they were intimidated by the protests and the riots that broke out. A lot to say about that coming up next on American Agenda.
Welcome back to American Agenda. Bob Sellers here with Heather Childers. An alternate juror in the Derek Chauvin trial making an alarming admission. Lisa Christensen says that she thinks the jury intimidation may have played a major part in the trial and didn't want to go through herself the writing if the mob didn't like the verdict. But she says one witness ultimately convinced her that Chauvin was guilty.
He actually had us demonstrate. We were all in the jury and we all were touching our necks, the front of our necks, the back of our necks, as he was saying, and we could feel what he was trying to make us feel. What really did it was when he said, right here at this point is where he had that seizure, and this is where he died.
Now, this comes as legal experts question the legitimacy of the trial, claiming members of Black Lives Matter, Maxine Waters, even President Biden intimidated witnesses in the jury. In fact, we had Alan Dershowitz on earlier today that was saying this definitely should have been a mistrial, and it will be appealed. He thinks it should be thrown out, even if it has to get to the Supreme Court. Alan Dershowitz expressing that. So will the comments, all of this, make it possible that this verdict could be overturned? So, Amy, what do you think there's a likelihood?
I do. Now, the fact that she actually said, though, in the end, her decision, her final verdict decision, was based on the explanation of the neck scenario and not, though, the bullying, so to speak. You know, that's iffy. But I do think, though, that they are going to appeal. Most likely it will be overturned. Her concerns over safety are legitimate. And the fact that they weren't sequestered, I think, will leave a huge opening for them to get this overturned.
Yeah. You know, Judd, even the appeals process, the judges, they'll probably be public. They're going to be susceptible to pressure as well, which, by the way, if I understood what Alan Dershowitz was saying, that's why he thinks this may go to the Supreme Court.
Justice is not blind. It has one eye open on a mob it's scared about being attacked by, right? That's the meta conversation right now we're having. There's a threat going on in our country. The president has opined on it. Maxine Waters has opined on it. We're definitely susceptible to a mistrial. We don't want a mistrial for this situation. I don't think so. I mean, with great responsibility becomes great consequence. This guy acted horribly. And yet at the same time, we have this other situation that's very unsettling every day, is the person that perished in the situation was not a good person. We continue to hold those both in both hands. So it's a complicated situation of justice for all of us. But as far as America goes, look, we want more accountability. They got it. They got it. I don't want to see this thing go through this process. America needs to move on. This is going to be the Me Too movement of police enforcing. We're going to have a higher standard, and we're going to go forward.
Yeah, John, what do you think? Because Alan Dershowitz's problem is that they should have been sequestered, the jury. That's a big one. And the venue should have been changed because of all the pressure out there in the public.
Well, we know that Lady Justice is blind. The jurors should be also, but they have two ears, right? And they heard every word that Maxine Waters and Joe Biden stated and other influencers, right? This is the reason why people who are elected officials and other influencers should be limited in words and opinions when they're talking about cases that are underway. Yes. Why? Because it could sway people and sway jurors. And the last thing you should do is jeopardize a case that's pretty much clear cut. You know, when I talk to Democrats, people in the middle, as well as Republicans, there was no degree of separation there. Everyone saw it the same way. So why jeopardize a case like that and other cases that are coming up? Is completely irresponsible.
Yeah. Heather, what do you think about this one?
I mean, I think there were so many issues to begin with. I think the judge, as I think we were all saying, made a huge mistake by not immediately sequestering the jury. You had the $27 million civil settlement with the family of George Floyd. They were clearly fully aware of that. You had a defense witness who they thought that this witness lived in this home, and they went and spread pig's blood all over the home. You know, you would think they would be aware of that. Right.
You're talking about what the mob
did. And it's not just not watching television like you could tell a jury. It's all of social media. So how can they escape seeing all of that? I think it's next to impossible.
Do you think it matters that, like Amy was saying, Generally, and John was saying, people generally think that, yeah, he was guilty based on the evidence that you had in front of you.
I think it does a disservice if that is the case, and that is how the jury
agree.
felt, and that if it was a strong case, it does a disservice to that case because it still calls it into question.
Yeah, and also you don't want
due process matters.
Go ahead, John.
Due process matters.
It
right?
does
even
matter.
Even if you think that, you know what, the evidence, everything is pointing to guilty, you want to make sure that the process is honored. Why?
Absolutely.
Because we're the only country in the world that has the best system. It may not get it right all the time, but it's the best and fairest system on this planet.
And you want to make it right for the next person and the next person after that, so the process does matter.
Those 3 officers.
Yeah, and that's going to start in August. We'll see. We'll talk about that between now and then, I'm sure. Amy Tarkanian, Judd Dunning, John Burnett, thank you all. Coming up, we have more of American Agenda after this.